still not that old. She's just gray at the edges, but years do take toll. But she's just as good, boys, as she used to be. Many long years ago, you can take it from me. And her stride's got that rhythm so dark and so bold, it's like primitive thunder, 7 centuries rolled. And lots of good riders, lots of good men, who have stood up beside her, would stand up, they would stand up again. They would stand up again, just to see she's the grandest of ladies.
Hello, I'm Ingrid Fraser. For hundreds of years, traditional music flourished in the bays and inlets that serrate our coast. Settlers from England, Ireland, Scotland and France carried their old songs across the sea. These immigrants composed new music that reflected life in their chosen land. The mid-part of this century saw the rise of rock and roll and country. For most young urban Newfoundlanders, traditional tunes belonged to their parents. They worshiped John Lennon, not John White. And they didn't even know about the rich musical heritage that existed here. Tonight, on the conclusion of our story of Newfoundland music, a group of young people go back to the Bay, rediscover songs as ancient, wild, and beautiful as this land, and take them to the world stage.
The early 70s and mid-70s saw a tremendous resurgence of interest in Newfoundland culture and in taking pride in being a Newfoundlander. And that's when Codco came into being, and a lot of visual artists were being recognized, and musicians as well. It was a very important time. I guess you could say it was the Renaissance era for Newfoundland culture.
And I'm speaking for culture.
When Newfoundland was kind of bursting at the seams, trying to find an identity that wasn't, you know, little Newfies kind of thing, you know, and cute little, you know, folkloric things. We were struggling to try and find our voice, and it was really, really strong.
Newfoundland, Canada's happy province.
There was a sense that Confederation 1949 was day one in Newfoundland, and everything that came before was negative and bad, and the bad old days and so on. And after 20 years of that, I think people began to realize that maybe everything that came before wasn't that bad. Maybe what the intervening 20 years weren't that good either.
Oh, but you know, it's not just an idea, it's a reality. Yes.
You had the LSP Hall thriving, you had you know, the Mummers, you had Codco, you had so much going on in theater and music as well that did not rely on outside influences. It was ours.
There was a vibe, there was a sense, it seemed to me there was an intellectual underground that was just, you know, really coming up to the surface, and it was exciting, it was strong, it was, you know, really heady times.
Down, down from your mountain of ego, where sorrow was never before.
During the Cultural Renaissance, a group of young urban musicians were rethinking their place in Canada and the world. They were searching for a way to express who they were and where they came from. Two seminal figures, both obsessed with Newfoundland culture, led the way. Neil Murray was a Rhodes Scholar and journalist. He had an eclectic collection of international music. Neil encouraged musicians to perform Newfoundland folk songs, and he introduced a young audience to traditional music through his radio show, Jig's Dinner. Noel Dinn was a musician. He would go on to form the trad rock band Figgy Duff.
Noel was a real corner boy, townie, and hadn't really ever experienced Newfoundland music, you know, by living in a community where it went on, kind of thing. So we all became friends, and various kinds of bands sprang up.
The Philadelphia Cream Cheese Band was essentially a rhythm and blues band. Laverne Squires would come out for certain gigs, and she started doing folk songs, and amongst those folk songs were some Newfoundland folk songs. I remember in particular a song called Who Was at My Window Weeping.
Laverne Squires learned some traditional songs from private music teachers and at high school in St. John's. In the mid-60s, Neil Murray introduced her to the great folk song collections. That's when her passion for traditional music blossomed.
I was studying music with Eileen Stanbury at the time, and I met Neil Murray, and he had this gorgeous array of books, you know, and music galore, and he wanted me to sing them. I liked the poetry, say, first. Then I said, well, if the poetry is there, the melody's got to be gorgeous. And it was, you know. 'Twas on one day and a high holiday, the high day in the year, Lord Donnell himself, he went to church, some holy words to hear, some holy words to hear.
Noel Dinn hadn't realized traditional Newfoundland ballads existed until he heard Laverne Squires sing some. And when Laverne introduced Noel to Neil Murray, a relationship grew that was to give birth to an all-consuming mission.
Neil always had a total fascination with anything Newfoundland and was a real nationalist, and had he'd known a lot of the Newfoundland song collections and so on that had gone on. We hadn't really seen them at this point because no one sort of brought that kind of stuff up in school or anything. So I remember Neil showing us all the Maud Carplet collection, the Peacock collection, and the Greenleaf and Mansfield collection, looking at the songs from there. Not to mention that he spent every cent he had getting Figgy Duff off the ground.
I have a distinct memory of being out at Neil's house out in Murray's Pond one night, probably sometime in 1969. And Noel must have been there, Laverne was probably there. He played this record for us. It was a Fairport Convention album called Legion Leaf.
A holiday, and the first one of the year, Lord Donald's wife came into the church, the gospel for to hear.
Hearing Fairport really was quite an eye-opener. It became a model, a blueprint, like, okay, so that's how you can do these songs. That's how you can be a rock and roll band and play traditional folk songs. I would suspect that the seed was planted right then and there that became Figgy Duff and everything that ensued.
But in 1969, putting together a Newfoundland trad rock band was well down the road. The Philadelphia Cream Cheese Band split up, and Noel and Laverne formed the psychedelic group Land of Mordor. Then came Lukey's Boat. They were considered an acid rock band, but they managed to throw a few Newfoundland folk songs into their repertoire. Then, on the eve of signing a recording contract in England, personal problems tore Lukey's Boat apart.
It just sort of wallowed in the wilderness for a while, but it really came to a head, I guess, in 1975 in January, when we got together, myself and Noel and Jamie Snyder and Phil Dinn, to do a show with Cogco at the Arts and Culture Centre. We did all traditional music.
Come and I will sing you.
What will you sing me?
I will sing you one note.
What will the one be?
One lived all alone, forevermore shall be so. Come and I will sing you.
What will you sing me?
Figgy Duff was born. The band went through several incarnations, including one with Anita Best. By the end of 1975, their lineup was set, with Noel Dinn, his brother Philip, Dave Panting, Kelly Russell, Art Stoyles, and Pamela Morgan.
We wanted to de-ghettoize, I guess, if you can use that word, Newfoundland music. And we wanted people to hear and understand and take pride in the old songs and do them in such a way that younger people would become interested and try and get it out and try and dispel that Newfie myth.
A sailor courted a farmer's daughter who lived convenient to the Isle of Man.
They, in a way, were discovering a culture they didn't know about. You know, they started, in fact, a whole tradition of rock musicians going out into local communities all over this province and meeting people who could sing and then recording them or taking down their songs. And they started a whole new revolution of the wheel of collecting local folk songs. And out of that, one of the best collections of Newfoundland folk songs we have is Genevieve Lear and Anita Best's Pam Morgan's book called Come and I Will Sing You, which was really based on their field trips as local musicians trying to learn new old songs in the 1970s.
From the Peacock collection, we got the names of the singers and the places they came from and went to the communities. And I can't believe, you know, when I look back on it now, how brazen I was. I mean, because I used to just go up and knock on the door and say, excuse me, does so-and-so live here? Or who's the best singer in this community? And things like that. We went out, you know, looking for these people who sang the songs, and we found them.
In the 18 years they were together, Biggie Duff produced 4 albums. They moved from creating rock arrangements of traditional tunes to writing original material. Biggie Duff raised an awareness of Canadian Celtic music that would open doors for future bands such as the Rankins and Great Big Sea.
Don't have to hide away your head.
I think Newfoundland owes Noel Dinn a huge debt. I mean, Newfoundland music in particular. I never would have had the determination and drive to keep it up like he did. I was following, and we all were following this, you know, dictator, you know, this leader who just had the strength and perseverance and the vision to make it happen.
Welcome to My Mailboxes, etc. This is a full-service copy center. Need thousands of copies? No problem. We do it all, from start to finish. All you have to do is drop it off here. We'll take care of the rest. Say you have a big proposal. We'll color copy it, bind it, and you're on your way. Presentations, calendars, brochures, menus, we'll even laminate, all with a personal touch. Can your copy store do that?
250 locations across Canada to serve you.
This is our famous Whopper. This is not. This is what you've come to love us for. This is not. This is delicious. And so is this. Try our new spicy chicken sandwich. Peppered marinated spicy chicken. Crisp home-style coating. Fresh lettuce and tomatoes. Zesty mayo on a sesame bun. And unlike this, it's only around for a limited time.
When you have it your way, Canada, it just tastes better.
How would it feel to win $1 million? Well, on Mother's Day 2000, your dreams could come true. The $1 million draw is back. There's no better way to make Mom happy. A chance to win $1 million. Get your ticket today. The draw takes place May 14th, Mother's Day. $1 million could be yours. Call today.
HealthQuest Personal Healthcare Notebook. Quality of sleep is important to your personal wellness. There are many changes in head and neck positions as you sleep. If your head and neck are not properly aligned and supported during sleep, you may experience neck pain, stiffness, and morning headaches. Proper selection of a pillow can reduce pain and improve quality of sleep. The professionally trained staff at HealthQuest can assist you in finding orthopedic products that can improve your comfort throughout the day and while you sleep. HealthQuest, improving your health and lifestyle.
Discover the best value on the road. The 2000 Hyundai Sonata GL with powerful 4-cylinder engine, automatic transmission, air conditioning, cruise control, power windows, locks, mirrors, and more. This beautiful sedan can be yours right now at Capital Hyundai for an amazing $199 bi-weekly tax included. And as always, with every new Hyundai, all you pay for is tires, gas, and windshield washer fluid. Come in and take the free ride at Capital Hyundai, where driving is believing.
I told my teenager the facts of life and death. I said the #1 killer of teens today is car crashes, collisions, bad driving. So I'm giving you Young Drivers of Canada, the most demanding driving course in North America. They teach you risk perception, emergency braking, the secrets of collision avoidance. And you know, it was just what he wanted. You've got a wonderful life ahead, but you've got to get there alive. Young Drivers of Canada, that's what parents are for.
Driver suspension point reduction programs available.
Other young musicians were trying their hand at trad rock. Tommy Sexton fronted a Fairport Convention cover band called Rakish Paddy, and there was the savage sound of Red Island.
They were a loud, aggressive trad band who liked to make noise and have fun.
Red Island had a solid following in St. John's, but once they crossed the overpass, it was a different story.
We'd go play these bars out around the bay, and the place would be block solid. And after the first set was over, there'd be about 20 people left in the bar. You know, they all get up and leave, and it's like go down the road somewhere. You know, it's like to the other bar where the country band was playing. You know.
You may talk of Clare and Nolan's baller and sing and choose, but it couldn't hold a snuff box to the free at Calagoose.
Figgy Duff and Red Island may have had trouble gaining a following in rural Newfoundland, but the reverse is certainly true for the wonderful Grand Band.
Sandwich, Berkshire Rye, tart, wine, cherry wine, and turpentine, jolls, and cavalances, ginger beer and tea, pig, sweet, cat's meat, dumpling full of vinaigrette, dandelion, and cracky soup of the Calagoose worry.
I don't think we ever had an unsuccessful booking. Humor played a big part in it, and the fact that we didn't take anything too seriously, and it was a rockin' good band. You know, you could dance to it, and you could tap your feet to it, and you could sing along with it. It was a show, as opposed to a band in a bar.
I remember being in Toronto and getting the call from Sandy saying, you know, we're going to try and write a TV show with Greg and Mary, and do you want to come home and work on it? And we'll get a band together, and we'll have a show.
The Root Cellar was a kind of mythical burr or club run by Mr. and Mrs. Budgell, Greg Malone and Mary Walsh. We were the house band for the TV shows, and for the duration of that show, we were dubbed the Wonderful Grand Band.
The fishing bonnet is an arbor, lots of fish running around here. Boys and girls are fishing together, 45 from Carmen here. Catch all this one, catch all that one, swing around this one, swing around cheese. Dance around this one, dance around that one, diddle down this one, diddle down me.
Once the shows were taped and over with, well, we had put in so much time and had by now, you know, a fairly decent repertoire of Newfoundland fiddle tunes and Ron Hines songs. So we decided we might as well continue on.
In the second year, our ratings
were in the neighborhood of 235,000 viewers a week. In a province with a population of about 500,000, that's a very, very respectable number. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's probably ever been a number that would come anywhere near that.
Well, I mean, we were lucky to grow up in a period when the wonderful Grand Band, to give them all the credit that's due, was on TV. And they were playing Newfoundland music in a really commercial form, you know, that stood up with the Troopers and April Wines that were being played on the radio stations. So you had this wicked positive reinforcement of Newfoundland music.
By the late 1970s, young trad rock bands were traveling Canada, Europe, and the United States. Although some older singers and players began to appear at folk festivals, most stayed in their kitchens and carried on a more private, community tradition. But three became beloved mentors.
Rufus Ginchard is a very important person in the Newfoundland music scene. Fiddle playing kind of died out in Newfoundland throughout the 1950s and 60s. Prior to that, I mean, a lot of people played fiddle, played accordion. This was the form of entertainment years ago. But when rock and roll music came in and country music came in and radio and television and all these different influences, people tended to cast off their fiddles and accordions, didn't play anymore. And there's a few key people, such as Rufus, who kept playing through that time. You had younger people like myself, you know, around about 1975 or so, who were interested in learning the Newfoundland music. Well, who could you learn it from? There were no recordings made of a lot of these musicians. So someone like Rufus, who was, you know, at least 2 generations older than me, that was a gold mine for me. If he had quit playing, you know, that source of music just wouldn't have been there.
Great, got it.
Well, sir, I know his tunes is over 100 years old. If I only played them, I learned them from my uncles, my whole uncles, you know. They could play the violin. See, old Uncle John Peter Payne used to play the violin, and that's where I learned his tunes. And he learned them from his old uncles, from his old uncles. Now, that goes back a long way, sir. I don't know how far back, past 100 years, but a good ways.
I used to see him somewhat as a representative of that generation of Newfoundlanders who were really the keepers of our cultural heritage, you know, in his case particularly the music. But I mean, there were people in all these communities who kept like the tunes, the dances, the stories, and the songs. These people, they weren't recorded in the history books. We never learned about them in school.
Emile Benoit was the other great influence for me, and he, completely different than Rufus. His repertoire tunes was entirely different. Emile composed a lot of his own music. Also a man who loved a lot of fun and loved to play music and entertain people. Dance around, he'd get up to all kinds of antics, you know, playing the fiddle and on his back. I saw him actually do a somersault one time and land back on his feet, and he never missed a note of the tune. It was amazing.
I just loved his spirit, and it was absolutely infectious. You couldn't be in his company without catching some of the joy.
Emile's career was remarkably like Rufus Ginchard's. The fiddler gained prominence in his 60s, He made lasting friendships with Kelly Russell, Christina Smith, Pamela Morgan, and other young musicians. Emile took his music to Europe, across Canada, and into the United States.
Emile's such a showman, and that whole connection between the French culture here and the French culture there was, for Emile, it was just like being home. It was you know, so close to what he'd grown up with and the kind of situation he'd play in on the Fort Peninsula, that it was really a trip, and people loved him there. They just, you know, identified with him right away. He had friends. It was, you know, you couldn't get him out of there.
Some of the tunes he had were, you know, bits and pieces of traditional tunes that he would put together, and he'd put his own name on it. But there were other tunes that I've never heard anything like it anywhere, wherever they came from. Just the music in the man was incredible.
Rufus had passed away, and then a little while after that, Emile passed away. And I remember Minnie White saying to me, I'm the next one in line, you know. And I think what she really meant, not so much that she was going to be the next one to die, but that it was, Emile and Rufus were icons, had become almost legends in their own time in Newfoundland as instrumental performers. And so had Minnie.
I was 8 years old. That's when I was in Bays Ferry, in Alvin. I got interested in accordion on account of my father used to play the accordion. And I liked accordion. I liked all kinds of music then, but I seemed to take the accordion more so than anything else. I didn't think I could play very good, but they asked me to go to a club that started down there called the Starlight Lounge. One Sunday. I went down that Sunday, and I will guarantee you I never so sorry in all my life. Going down for a few people was going to be there, and there was about 300 blocked the place, and here I never got on the bandstand before. I had to face it, and you can picture what I felt like. I had my stomach full of butterflies. As soon as we started to play, the people blocked the floor. Well, that was a little bit of encouragement. I figured that when they're not going to look at me, they're dancing. I went back the next Sunday, and I ended up there 13 years.
It was quite different, because here's a woman that you had a hard job to get out of the kitchen and convinced that she really do play well. And then to go into a club, and there she is being the boss of the band, and they frightened the death of her. They better not screw up. She fronted the band, she called the shots on what she wanted to play, she wrote her own music. Oh yeah, that was something else. There used to be always a joke, you know, what's the definition of a gentleman? A fellow who can play accordion but one. You know, what's the difference between a button accordion and a piano accordion? Piano accordion burn longer. These sort of things, right? Well, Minnie White, I think, and from them, took the stigma away now. I think she put some recognition back into accordion players, some respectability back into accordion players.
I often said, there's accordion players in Newfoundland, women, plays behind the doors. If they got out, they'd probably do the same as I done. Once you make up your mind to go, because I know it got to be a good new accordion players. Got to be some women out there. And they're not showing up, see? But I was brave enough to step up and go.
Hi. What's this?
I bought them today. It's the Canadian Legal Will Kit. We have to write our wills, and this kit tells us exactly what to do and how to do it.
It's great.
Young or old, married or single, widowed or divorced, everyone needs a legal will. Because without a legal will, the government can decide who gets your estate and who will be the guardian of any minor children.
We wrote our wills quickly and easily with the solicitor-approved Canadian Legal Will Kit.
It was so simple. We just filled in the blank spaces to make a will that's legal in all provinces. It saved us time and money on legal costs, and we didn't need a solicitor. We now know how to change or revoke our wills at any time, and more importantly, we have peace of mind knowing our family is secure.
Don't risk your hard-earned estate. Have your final say with the Canadian Legal Will Kit. It's only $29.95 plus postage. Call National Direct now. Write the number down and have your final say. Order yours today.
So many nights.
Presenting in concert, Etc. 14, featuring the Mount Pearl Show Choir. Come join us for a musical evening of song and dance with the show choir that's entertained you during some of the province's biggest celebrations. Etc. 14, on stage at the Mount Pearl Glacier, May 9th through 13th. Tickets on sale daily at the Glacier box office.
Hi, I'm Debbie Cooper. At Here and Now, our job is to inform, not just to tell you what happened in Newfoundland and Labrador, but to celebrate and explore our cultural life. On Friday nights, we bring you Art Space with Ingrid Fraser, your window on the arts. Our producers and journalists make sure you can rely on us for information that is relevant, stories that are insightful. Join Doug Leto and me for Here and Now. It's more than just a newscast.
Wherever you wake up in Newfoundland and Labrador, CBC Radio 1 is there for you.
Good morning and welcome back to the West Coast edition of the Morning Show.
Good morning, I'm Ray Prue and...
Survival information from our network of morning shows.
You're listening to the Morning Show from CBC Radio 1 and weather forecast for the East Coast and Central Newfoundland.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a Labrador Morning on CBC Radio 1. I'm Cindy Wall in Happy Valley Blues Bay. In Maine, the Upper Lake Melville area, and the Colvick, Hopedale, Postville.
Westerly winds 40 to 60, gusting to 90 along the coast and central Newfoundland.
Fair driving conditions reported on the Burgeo Highway this morning.
Your community, your province, your morning covered. CBC Radio 1, news and more.
You may talk a Clara Nolan's ball or anything you choose, but I couldn't hold a snuff box to the spree of Kelligrews.
Newfoundlanders have always been topical in their songwriting, as is almost all traditional music. And they've written about specific events and specific people and times and so on.
And I'll tell you, boys, we had a time at the Kelligrews soiree.
Not just the singing tradition, but I think the songwriting or the song-making tradition is still pretty strong as well.
Well, Crooked Flavin struck the fiddler, so a hand I then took in. You should see George Clooney's beaver hat and it flattened to the rim. And Hogan's coat was like a vest, the tails were gone, you see. Says I, the devil haul ye in your Kelligrews soiree.
John Burke was, in his time, the most successful impresario in St. John's. Year after year, from the 1890s till almost till the time he died, he put out books of songs, mostly of his own creation. Songs that may have been out of the whole cloth written by John Burke, or may have been cast as a parody of some other popular song. He'd find something in the news, and then he'd turn it into a song.
As I sit here alone by the fire, Maggie, strange fancies my mind often fill. So I said, why strike off that new large, Maggie, of your dock near the old Southside Hill.
Some of his songs
because they were distributed as these songbooks or as little sheets of what we call broadsides, little sheets of paper, perhaps 5 or 6 inches wide, 12 inches long or so, he'd sell these on the street or hire little boys to sell them. Because they were distributed that way, sometimes they travel long distances, and some of his songs have in some sense gone underground for the 60 years or 80 years since he wrote them. And one example of that is the song Harbour Grace Excursion, or Excursion Around the Bay.
Well, it was on last Monday morning, and the day been calling fine, to the Harbour Grace Excursion with the boys to have a time. And just before the sailor took the gangway from the pier, I saw some fellow haul me wife and voted a volunteer.
When you're younger, you might have heard a cousin or an uncle sing this song that really stood out in your head, and then you just got to sort of, you know, just prod back and search it out again. And that's indeed what's happened with Excursion Around the Bay, which I remember Gabe Houlihan singing from I was young as 7 years old.
Oh me, oh my, I heard me oh I cry. Oh me, oh my, I think I'm gonna die. Oh me, oh my, I heard me oh I say, I wish I'd never taken this excursion around the bay. Hey!
In 1967, a young singer-songwriter made his own excursion from the Bay. And Ron Hines would later play Johnny Burke in a stage production called The Bard of Prescott Street. Now regarded as Newfoundland's premier songwriter, Ron polished his skills acting, writing, and singing in the cooperative theater movement of the 1970s and 80s. The new bard had arrived.
To my mind, he follows directly in the tradition of St. John's songwriters that Johnny Burke formed a part of. And Ron is the modern day sort of continuance of that Johnny Burke songwriting tradition, you know?
Johnny lives on a farm, on a far distant place. Take off your shoes, stay out of.
I've always thought that growing up here in this community kind of made me the kind of writer that I am. It colors everything that I do. And you spend years and years and years thinking about it. I'm going to be a songwriter in the music business, and everybody thinks, well, how the hell are you ever going to do that? You grow up in little tiny communities like this. Those kinds of things seem so remote. They seem so impossible.
Silence goes on, I'm feeling so tired.
Some of the Ron songs are already traditional Newfoundland music. You know, I think they've been absorbed into not only Newfoundland culture, but in cultures all over the world. It's a phenomenon, if you ask me.
Sonny's dream has traveled across cultural and linguistic boundaries. The Irish claim it as their own, and it's been translated and sung by the Portuguese. And although Ron Hines typically writes narrative, not topical songs, the tragic sinking of the Ocean Ranger in 1982 inspired Atlantic Blue.
Bodies have been spotted in the water, but there is no indication at this time as to whether there are any survivors.
What color is a heartache from a love lost at sea? What shade of my morning never fades, but lingers to eternity? How dark is the light? Sleepless eyes of mine survey. Is that you, Atlantic Blue? My heart is as cold as you.
It was kind of a day like that day. It was pretty bad, pretty stormy, pretty dark day. And it just all came back to me really early in the morning, and I spent the day at the table writing that lyric. And couldn't sing it for the longest time, couldn't get through it. It was just, it had a really emotional effect on me, you know. But that's always a great breakthrough for me, just to be able to, like, get past that, you know, be able to just, like, write about all that stuff. Because I carried it around, like most people, for years and years, the shock of that, right? It was a big moment in the history of Newfoundland. The loss of the Ranger, all those lives.
I lie awake in the morning as the waves wash on the sand. I hold my heart at bay, and the lives of his children in my hands. And whose plea will receive no answer, whose cry is lost upon the wind, whose voice so familiar whispers my name as the night comes in, whose wish never fails to find a vacant heart on Valentine's. Is that you at blue? My heart is as cold. My heart is as cold. My heart is as cold as you.
There's a quote from Lady Hope Simpson. She said, you know, Newfoundlanders are the only people who had to be chained to heaven because they always want to be going back to their island.
That sense of place is a recurrent theme in Newfoundland songs. It's rooted in a love of home that's regional by nature, but universal in its appeal. Whether singing about the beauty of the land, the warmth of the people, or the politics of the day, our songwriters reveal Newfoundland to audiences at home and abroad.
Just to wake up in the morning to the quiet of the cove and hear Aunt Bessie talking to herself.
We're believers that you got to stay, you know, connected to family and to home and to community and to nature. I have to get in the woods. I have to hear the waves on the beach, and I've got to hear the wind blow the leaves, and I got to hear a brook rattle on a regular basis, not just a Sunday afternoon walk. It doesn't do it, doesn't cut it. Almost every day of my life, I have to go and do that.
How can I leave those mornings with the sunrise on the cove and the gulls like flies surrounding Clayton's wharf?
Expatriate Newfoundlanders desperate for a taste of home are transported by the lyrics of Buddy What's-His-Name and the other fellas. Lyrics that speak of the people and places they've left behind.
Some go to where the buildings reach to meet the clouds, where warm and gentle people turn to swarming faceless crowds. So I'll do without their riches, glamour and the noise, and I'll stay and take my chances with those saltwater joys.
If we're not here, if we're not in Newfoundland, we can't write about what we see, and we can't hear the stories, and we can't talk to the people, and we can't learn the songs from here.
If we're going to do original material, we're going to do it in a traditional type of way, then we're going to write about the things that we care about, things that we know about, which is, of course, our people and our place. And that's what we did.
In 1915, on the 10th day of June, at Burke's Wharf, the Marion lay.
In the late 1970s, Bud Davidge and Sim Savory formed Simini. The duet from the South Coast became extremely popular. Their Saltwater Cowboys album sold over 70,000 copies, and musicians flocked to their recording studio in Valorum, looking for that Simini sound.
On the quay, were rumored to say she'd never be heard from again.
Whenever you're talking about your own culture, your own people, your own place, your own language, your own humor, you've got a pretty broad fabric there to draw from. 'Cause I've seen the mountains, and I've seen the sea.
The voices of the old trappers can be heard in the music of Cartwright's Harry Martin, who draws inspiration from the history and the wilds of Labrador.
And lived a life that was free.
The fact that I left Labrador helped to give me that feeling of of what I had, something that we, I think, all too often take for granted. The songs are there behind every tree and every rock. It's just a matter of putting it on paper, and it's not difficult to write a song about the big land.
Where the wild birds are flying and the caribou roam. Many places I've rambled, but this is my home.
What's your thing? Bugs. Everybody's gotta have a thing.
My thing's sound effects. Here's a T-Rex.
Nobody's good at everything, but everybody's good at something. What's your thing?
Just waiting for one phone call back, and then we should be able to go out and shoot.
Sounds good. Hello, I'm Debbie Cooper. At Here and Now, our job is to inform, not just to tell you what happened in Newfoundland and Labrador, but to get right to the heart of the matter. Explain, interpret, why it's important, why you should care. Our producers and journalists make sure you can rely on us for news that is relevant, stories that are insightful. Join Doug Leto and me for Here and Now. It's more than just a newscast.
The Fisheries broadcast is about people making a living in their communities. It's about business people competing in a high-stakes global marketplace. We bring you the people and the issues that shape the fishing industry in Newfoundland and Labrador. We're on the move throughout the province, bringing you the stories you won't hear anywhere else.
Good evening and welcome to the Fisheries broadcast on CBC Radio 1 in Newfoundland and Labrador.
When I first started in the entertainment business, I never could have known where my career would take me. And when the Shriners opened their first hospital for children, they never imagined that it would evolve into a network of 22 of the world's finest children's hospitals. The Shriners offer expert medical care to kids, and there's a Shriners hospital helping kids from this area. If you know a child with orthopedic problems or severe burns that they could help, call this number for more information. Shriners, building a better tomorrow for kids.
Start your weekend with Land and Sea, Fridays on CBC Television.
They sailed out from St. Leonard's and out from Toulouse. They steamed across the bay with their houses in tow.
If Biggie Duff opened the doors for Celtic music in the 1970s and 80s, then the Irish Descendants stepped through in the 90s. The final decade of the century saw the East Coast music industry blossom. The Descendants led the Newfoundland Parade.
For us, initially, I mean, no one knew who the hell the Irish Descendants were, but we had sense enough to you know, write the record companies, and fortunate enough to meet Sam, the record man, and when we did finally get an opportunity to play in front of these people, the crowd were out, and it was exciting times, and we excited those people, and subsequently we built relationships on that.
In the merry month of June, when from me home I started, left the girls in tune, so sad and broken hearted, saluted father dear.
You know, I became familiar, acquainted with the O'Briens and the Irish Descendants, and a fellow called Coolin, who's retired now, was head of Warner Brothers, and he wanted to sign this group very, very much. I said, well, you know, I'm not quite sure. I said, you know, I'm going to St. John's, you know, we're going to have East Coast music and such like, and we'll get a hold of O'Brien's boat, which is in the Bay Bulls, you know, and we'll get everybody on the boat, and they won't get off the boat until they sign the contract. Well, that's what happened, believe it or not. You know, it's so far-fetched when you think about it. But that was the first time that an artist from Newfoundland had been signed by a multinational company. And I think that's sort of a landmark. And of course, that same company signed Big C, and all these things are doing well.
And the winner is the Irish Descendants. Yeah!
For us, things like the East Coast Music Awards aside, are great. It's wonderful to win them, but that sort of thing is a very important tool for anybody who's building a career in the music business.
Tell you what, I'll give you a deal.
What?
$20, you can have a CD, no problem.
Everybody's, oh, East Coast music. You know, it's great. Where was it? Well, it's always been there. You know, this talent has always existed. In the last 10 or 20 years is when the record companies found out that they could make money out of it. Suddenly everybody's, oh my God, where's this talent been?
And the winner is...
Great Big C, Luke.
And I think we should say there's something really amazing about a music scene where a 100-year-old song from Buena Vista Bay can become the video of the year.
I think the biggest thing for down here is the people here in Newfoundland have to realize, as regional as their music is, it's universal.
If you just look around, Newfoundland is the people and the rocks and the trees that are here, and you know, as long as there's rocks and trees and people here, there's going to be songs.
Traditional music, too, is one of those things that its death has often been reported, you know. As long as there's two Newfoundlanders left on the island, one is a performer and the other one is an audience. So I think the fact that the music isn't homogeneous, the fact that it's always changing, that it's been evolving for 500 years, so you can't say, okay, this is traditional music, now we're going to put it in a museum and we'll all admire it, you know, then it's meaningless. What's allowed this tradition to thrive is the fact that it's kept growing.
To think even that, you know, people will be singing Excursion Around the Bay or Lucas Boat or whatever 2 or 3 generations after we're gone, and we had something to do with, you know, preserving this little slice of Newfoundland folklore, and that's great.
You remember the Jerry Squires painting where all the families on the edge of the cliff, and they seem to be looking at something. They're looking at you or whatever, you know. In the back of my brain, there's a whole crowd of singers. I mean, I can't see them as individuals, but I can feel their goodwill. I can feel that they're happy the song is being sung again or something. I had a dream the other night.
lowlands, lowlands away, my John. I had a dream the other night, lowlands away. I dreamt my love came standing